everyone, welcome back at Charlotte from at Charlotte's house. Today I am in my living room and I'm going to talk a little bit about styling a mantle. Stay tuned. We live in an older home, and so one thing we have a lot of are these beautiful mantelpieces. So I am going to play around with ours. I'm going to try a few different options. Hopefully this will give you some ideas. If you don't have a mantelpiece in your house, then maybe you can use these ideas for a centerpiece or a little vignette on a sideboard or a bookshelf. Hope it helps. First thing I've done is I have gone around my house and I have gathered everything that might work on the mantle. And I've thought about colors, I've thought about textures, I've thought about sort of containers, and I have them all here ready to go. Okay, I like to swap out my art if I can, because sometimes there's different art that'll match the color palette. I just grabbed this at Goodwill yesterday, and it's not really my favorite set of colors, but I love this embroidered art, and I thought for a fall mantle, it might look nice up here. Okay, notice that when this art is hanging, I feel like I need a little bit of height here and a little bit of height here. So I'm gonna play around with that. I like the way this green sort of relates to that. So I'm trying to balance the height of that picture. I like the way these flowers kind of echo the shape of those leaves, but I'm also wondering if it's just a little bit too busy. So I think I might fill in a little bit more and then step back and see what I think. I love using cake stands or inverted bowls, anything to vary the height a little bit. Our mantle is so high that that's always my biggest challenge, is to fill this space so that I don't feel like I just have a bunch of little things sitting on the mantelpiece. Particularly for a fall mantle, I like to bring in as many plants as I can, just because harvest and greenery is such a big part of the season. So these are faux, which again I love because I won't have to worry about them. And I think they provide a nice little back layer. And then I will try to come up with some accessories and sort of fill in around here. So again, I'm really thinking about balance. So I love the way that this sort of jadeite echoes the planter. And I might just stick a smaller leaf in there. So right now the colors are very autumnal. They're sort of pale whites and muted greens, a couple little pops of orange, and I like that. So I'm looking into my accessory pile. I'm trying to think of what else I have down there that might sort of fit into this palette. So I have these brass candlesticks, and I'm actually thinking that they might be a little bit nicer than this one. I think I like the clean lines more than that busyness of the other one. All right, so I've stepped back, and one thing that I'm not loving, I feel like there's a lot of really fun color on this side. That side feels a little bit plain, so I'm wondering if maybe I bring this over. I don't love the way that green on green is sitting there. So now I'm looking over to my stash to see if I have another container where I could just put a little bit of a leaf there. I don't love that green, but it's not awful. Ah, see how I'm just playing around with it? There. Okay, I like that a lot more. Okay, when I step back here, I'm still noticing just a little bit of a gap right in here. And so I'm wondering if it's as simple as scooting that over, bringing in a couple more of my faux gourds. I don't know, you guys, I'm liking this. I think that for this kind of mantle, there's so much going on the picture frame that I sort of like that the mantle itself, I would never call it simple, but it doesn't have a ton of elements. I think maybe I'm done. I'm gonna step back, take another look. I'm gonna take a picture and look at that just because that sometimes makes it easier to see the balance, and then we'll see. I'm gonna call this Mantle 1, and I wanna talk a little bit about what I like here. So I like that there is a fairly obvious focal point in this thrifted embroidered art. Again, the style may not be for everyone, but for me, I love that it has the right height for the space. I love that it has very sort of autumnal colors. Obviously, I love the texture. And then I also love that I have a mantle that not only does it relate across the mantle, but both sides of it really flank that picture nicely. And I feel like there's a good balance going on. There's a balance of color because I have my two sets of leaves. There's also a nice balance of textures. I like the way I have the busy leaves here, obviously the embroidery, and then I have some sleek elements in the brass, and then again, I have that sort of echo of the pumpkins throughout, and I just like that it sort of relates without being too symmetrical and matchy-matchy. My favorite type of design. So this is mantle number 1, but now I'm going to experiment a little bit and I'm going to play around with some color. These colors are perfect for fall. They're not necessarily my colors, so let's see what else I can do. All right, mantle number 2. I'm gonna follow basically the same formula where I'm gonna try to find a focal point for the center of the mantle and then I'm gonna fill in around it. But this time I'm gonna use some colors because I'm a color loving girl. This is a really colorful room. So I'm trying to find a mantle that might fit with the decor in here a little bit better than that first one. All right, for mantle number 2, I'm gonna start with this painting. It's one of my favorites. The colors fit this room a little bit better, but you'll notice that she's just leaning up against the wall. Here's why. First of all, if I were to hang her from the screws that are in place, she would be way too high and it wouldn't look right. The reason that I am not hanging her at the right height is that this mantle is essentially solid concrete and we haven't been able to find an easy way to drill into it, so we're using the screws that are there and leaning her works just fine for me. But because I have her leaning, it means that I lose a little bit of space on my mantle and I'm gonna have to work around that. Okay, I'm gonna plan this mantle out a little bit differently. Now, I'm just gonna reach for things that I think complement the color scheme of this painting, and then I'll see how I can make them work. I'm finding a lot of these sort of pale greens, which isn't exactly the same color, but it's sort of a nice complement to the gold and the ochres of the base here. Now, I wasn't sure about this pink, but I'm actually noticing that it's not too far off from some of the undertones in this middle range. So that actually may be a nice vase to use because I always like to have some sort of a floral on my mantles. So I have a couple different containers for plants, and I think I like that darker brown. It sort of ties into the mantle. That feels a little bit casual. Okay, so the frame is gold. I don't mind how that works. Now again, this is not the arrangement that I'm gonna go with, but I'm just bringing in different elements to see if they complement the painting, and then I'll figure out where I need to put them. I always love a bell jar because there's so many things I can put inside it. What do we think about pine cones? I'm not feeling it. Ooh, these are faux. I'm not sure what they're meant to be, but those look so nice against the painting. I'm gonna try to work those in somehow. All right, I think I'm running out of room. Now, you'll notice that this is more of a silver. I have no issues mixing metals. I like that this brings in a little bit of a vintage vibe. So I'm gonna keep that up here and see if I can make it work. Now that I have all of my elements, I need to figure out where they're gonna go. So I'm gonna Take them down. And I'm gonna follow the same system as before. I'm gonna try to bring some height on either side and then fill in the middle. Now, if you saw my fall shed video, you know that one of the things I love about faux florals is that they are wire typically, so you can really manipulate them and make them fit where you need them to. I'll have to step back, but for now, that feels like it might be okay. So I need something large on that side. I'm feeling like these are too small, so here's a little pro tip. Hold on. I love to use books as a way to elevate. These books happen to have beautiful covers. So I think that'll look nice. Now this doesn't take up too much visual space now because it's not filled with anything, but we're gonna change that. And then I'm also gonna bring in another one of my favorite little tricks, these little micro lights. These are such a wonderful way of adding just a little bit of ambiance. And I have a few strings that aren't all tangled. So I think I'm gonna put that in to that cloche. All right, I like it, I like it, I like it. Notice that I'm just sort of standing here and playing around with my levels. I want to balance that plant, so I think maybe that is a better fix there, and then I can bring this gold star over to this side. And that actually is nice because the cloche has a gold base. Now, I still have these beauties to play around with. So I could obviously put them into the floral arrangement. What do you think? What do you think? I think we're gonna perch that there just to have a little bit of a tension between the metallics. And then I will stick an air plant anywhere, anytime, anyhow. I like the way the air plant looks here because the pink works, but it's very, very different than the rest of the color scheme. And so having the green in front of it, it just covers it up ever so slightly. Now, I stood back and the one thing I noticed, I felt like this part of the mantle felt a little bit uneven. It felt a little bare, but I have a trick for that. I have two of these glass beads that I get from the flea market, and I love that they can sort of drape and fill in where I need them to. See how it brings the eye up just enough that it fills in a little bit? I think for now that works perfectly. Again, this is our living room, so there's not a lot of kids running around. I would never set up something like this in a high traffic room because this is leaning against the mantle. But for a space like this, I actually think that this is looking really, really pretty. I'm gonna step back, take a picture, see what I think. I may be done. All right, mantle number 3. This time I'm going to have a little bit more fun. I'm gonna go a little bit quirkier and see what you think. For my last mantle, I'm gonna bring in some artwork that I made, quite large. It's not your traditional fall color scheme, but it does match the room. It's not the perfect height when I use the existing screws, but it's not way off, and this way I can fill in below it, which I'm hoping might be sort of fun. Because of the way this painting is hanging on the wall, I'm not as worried about height on either side because it's a wider painting, but I do want to make sure I fill in underneath it in such a way that it doesn't feel like I just have a blob of stuff underneath it, and that may be a challenge. So again, I'm grabbing things that sort of fit the color scheme of the painting. I mean, there's always a room for a disco ball. These houses are a slightly different wood tone than the frame and then the mantle, but sometimes when you throw a lot of different tones in the mix, it actually makes it kind of come together in a weird way. I'm having trouble finding just the right tones for this painting, but I'm wondering, that's just different enough that I may be able to lean this, and then this opens up the door for a bunch of other color schemes. I'm gonna try it. I'm making space for that painting on this side of the mantle. I already have a painting over here, and so I'm conscious of sort of balancing all the different artwork. Okay, here's why I like this so far. I like it that it overlaps just a little bit, but not too much. I like it because I just love this painting, and I think that it will allow me to tie in a few more colors, so I'm gonna keep playing around with this. All right, I went shopping. I got some more stuff from around the house. This is a purple cake stand, and I'm wondering if that'll work. It gives it just enough height. Now, the other thing that I found from around the house, I got this at the flea market, and most people thought I was crazy, but her colors are kind of perfect. So I'm gonna see if I can find a space for her. So the one thing that's going through my head right now is whether or not it's just too flat. And again, I don't want too much height because this painting is wide, but I want a little bit of variety. And I'm thinking that maybe I can put something in this vase, but I'm not sure what. I love the simplicity of just a couple of those. You can laugh at me for putting an air plant in every single picture, but it always adds just a little bit of wild texture that I can't quite find from anything else, which is why I love it. Right now I am loving this part of the mantle. This part of the mantle isn't working for me quite yet. I'm not sure why, so I'm just gonna keep adding and removing elements until I can figure it out. Here's where I've landed. So I have these very light metal bells, and I was able to kind of drape them over the side of the mantle, and I love that that adds a little bit of a break in this linear layout. I also love that I have just a little bit more of kind of an eclectic gathered vibe going on here. I wouldn't say this mantle is particularly on theme for fall, but it works in here. I love that there's little pops of pink. I love that I got my fun little vase in there. Her colors are perfect. Even though this embroidered artwork is a little bit of an outlier as far as the color scheme, it ties in these plants beautifully, and it still has the pinks and the sort of violets that are coming into the painting a little bit. They come into the cake stand, they come into the vase. So this is an example of a mantle that feels balanced to me. I like the way all the colors relate, even if they are not super, super matchy-matchy, and this might be the one that stays up for a little while because it matches the room, it suits my style, and it's really, really fun and interesting. I hope you learned a little bit watching me put together these three mantles. I had a blast. I am now looking at a pile of stuff scattered around my living room. I'm gonna go clean all that up, but I hope you enjoyed watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and have a great day, everyone.